Nobody wants to be forced to do something or feel like something's being shoved down their throat per se. So it's really important to work together with operations as a team and not just this is what we say, you have to do it. We have to get insight and feedback from them and from the associates, again, that are doing the work at ground level. They have to be an integral part of policy making and updating policies and processes.
Hey everyone, this is Evan from OneTrack, and you are listening to Warehouse Visionaries, where I sit down with the leaders shaping the future of warehousing logistics to talk about how they're doing it so the rest of us can too. Today, I am talking to Melody Moore. She's the director of EH&S at Rinchem and Global Hazardous Materials 3PL. And we're going to dive into what safety looks like in a hazmat environment and how Rinchem is building a world-class safety culture. So, Melody, I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Before we dive in, can you tell everyone a little bit about who you are, your background, and what Rinchem does?
Yeah, sure. So Melody Moore, director of EH&S and the quality team here at Rinchem. I've been working in 3PL with hazardous materials for over 20 years with a concentration in safety and compliance. And I'd always admired Rinchem. They've been a leader in this space since 1976. They're the largest network of chemical and gas distribution centers in the world. They have 30 locations in 6 countries, and they handle over 5 billion pounds of hazardous materials. So when you look at where you want to go, if you're wanting to do this with your career, it's somewhere I'd always aspired to. So I was really excited to take on this position and this opportunity.
So I got to ask, I mean, obviously a global 3PL that has its own set of challenges, but when you're talking about safety and hazardous materials, that's a whole other layer of complexity there. So what is it actually like being a safety leader in the hazardous material space, not to mention in a company with the scale that Rinchem does, being in multiple countries with sites all over the world?
Yeah, the biggest piece is you have to have a great team. Obviously, I'm not doing this on my own. So you have to have great operational leaders with that many sites, and you have to have a strong networking system at your corporate level for EHS as well. So that's the piece that we do have. Like you said, there's an additional layer of risk and complexity with what we do. And our EHS is mainly corporate. So our operational facilities take what we have and they are the leaders in their spaces to push forward everything that we step forth. Of course, we have great policies, procedures, processes, and systems. Systems are really important when you're dealing with EHS. And nobody can remember everything that has to go into this. So you have to have systems and you have to build your network to make sure that you're not forgetting anything and that you're not only doing it at that corporate level, but making sure that every facility that is under you is doing everything that's required and necessary. So really our systems and our people are the backbone of how we keep it going and how we stay safe and compliant.
Get you that golden triangle, right? People, process, technology. It sounds like you're hitting the nail on all three of them, which is pretty great. I know, speaking from experience, being on a great team with great people goes further than anything else can. But you talked about your processes, your technology. Let's dig into that a little bit. What are you specifically doing at Rinchem to get ahead of some of these challenges that comes along with safety and quality?
With us not being able to be on site at regular intervals, we have to, go outside of the box and see what's out there. That's what led us to OneTrack. So having the cameras on our forklifts has really opened us up to be able to view what's going on at a daily level instead of just being able to see with metrics and key processes, looking at all of the numbers and we can see what is our trend, where are we going, what is everything looking like. We can also look directly into the facility and see what's happening at a day-to-day level. So OneTrack is one of the pieces of those that has expanded our horizon there. And we share those videos during our monthly safety meetings throughout the company. We definitely use them for best practices. And sometimes, we use them for what we need to learn from. In our latest deployment at the new sites, we didn't find all of the same safety events that we saw when we first started a couple of years ago with OneTrack. And what we saw then we've been sharing with the rest of the company. So when we did our second deployment in some of our facilities, we didn't see those same items because they were already learning from what we had put out there and what we had been focusing on. So we believe that's a testament that they're taking those key takeaways before we ever implemented it, and we're already starting better than we did before.
I think that goes back to the whole world-class safety culture, right? You have people who are buying into these processes. It's not just words on paper, which unfortunately can be the reality that a lot of companies have to settle for, is it just goes into a binder and no one can do anything. We always talk about at OneTrack, you can't solve problems that you can't see. So what are some of those hidden hazards or risks that you said that you had seen, whether in that first deployment or now in this kind of expansion deployment, that otherwise would have gone unnoticed? And what are you and your team doing to get ahead of those problems now?
Some are very surface level and some were a bigger concern. So some of the first of the surface level that we found, things such as, we had policies surrounding cell phones and earbuds, but we noticed that they were being utilized, but maybe they were using some ways to get around them. So we buckled up our policies regarding cell phones, when and how they could be used. Earbuds, types of headwear that can be worn as to leave the ear canal completely exposed, and unfortunately not be trying to hide earbuds that you may be wearing. And then had a streamlined requirement for safety vests as well. We just noticed that we weren't the same across all of our facilities, and when we updated that one policy, we updated that as well. So it helped us see where some things might have been left open for interpretation and button those up. Some of the more complex is, we move a lot of empty containers or residue last contained. We're providing those products to customers and they bring them back to us and we send them back to the manufacturer so that they're reusing those containers. But what we noticed is they weren't always being handled in the same manner that full product was being handled. A lot of that just comes from thinking, oh, well, it's not a risk because it's not 500 pounds. It's just some residue in the bottom of it. But as we all know, that residue is still the same. It still has the same chemical component and the same hazards as it does when it's full of product. And so we saw that, and it created some safety trends that we were not aware of. So we quickly implemented a new process. We had a stand down for the entire company for handling and storage of these types of containers. And we saw those safety events drop off from the camera footage immediately. So again, that's not something that we were seeing in our metrics or our trends or our numbers, because they're empty and maybe when they're dropped, they weren't being thought of as a safety event, although it's a safety event every time. So that was the most key item that we had, that we put a lot of emphasis into, and we still continue to push that to this day to ensure it's being looked at in the same way, and that we talk about empties as the same as if they were a full product.
And I think that's really important. I mean, when you're talking about the realities day to day in a warehouse, right? People can think about, well, if I have my headphones in, like, what's the big deal? Or if I need to open up my phone real quick, it's fine. I just do it the one time, or do something extreme as handling the empties. And the reality is that those little behaviors can turn into very serious incidents if the behaviors continue. And I think that is the whole purpose of the EH&S teams and driving those behaviors out. But it's, again, seeing those little things that maybe you probably didn't know about, or the operation just, maybe they saw it and the supervisor coached on it, but then never documented it because it's just an earbud. But then when someone can't hear a horn going around an intersection, and that turns into a big problem. So it's important to get ahead of those types of things.
Definitely. Yeah, we are really glad that we were able to see those. We send out employees that are with our team that go out and do safety audits on site. We're there for a week. They're going through everything. But again, you're not seeing those items if you're not there on a day-to-day basis, because it might only happen, once a month. But we were able to see that trend quickly.
And how do you think physically being able to see what's happening has impacted? You talked about some of the policies you've set in place, but how has it impacted how you investigate safety events after you come in and find those empties banged up, or maybe it's workers' comp claim or something of that nature. How has the actual visibility changed how you approach situations?
So, you know the old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think that just holds so true. So we can talk about safety events with hundreds of employees that work with us, but to show them and not only show a picture of it, but to show a video of exactly how something happened and where the breakdown occurred, for them to see that is so much more powerful for them because they're not just taking our word that, oh, this happened. And if we would have done this, we could have been better. They're actually seeing it and they're putting themselves in that, in that position like, wow, this could have happened to me too. There are no words that can ever portray that piece of it. But it's interesting you said workers' comp. We were able to use the footage in an interesting case, which resulted in the case being dismissed. We all know how much workers' comp cases run, right? So it was a great win for us. An injury that was being claimed, I think on average is over $50,000. And we were able to pull that footage and see that it could not have created an injury from what happened. We were able to share that with our workers' comp. And again, we were able to get it completely thrown out. And we're not required to file that workers' comp claim for our company.
So now, before we started recording, we talked about something that you called the triangle theory, and I thought it was super interesting. So could you just walk me through a little bit in detail, like actually what that is, and then how you're using that at Rinchem to approach EH&S and how you do your day to day?
So it's referred to as the Heinrich Triangle. A lot of people call it different things, but the accident triangle is well known. But basically, it shows the relationship between injuries, serious accidents, minor accidents, and then near misses. So the idea proposes that, at the bottom, you would have your near misses and your minor accidents, and that if you can reduce the number here at the bottom, then there will be a corresponding fall in the number of serious accidents. So when we trend a category of near misses or minor, we step in to bring those to the attention of everyone before it goes into that serious accident or, a recordable injury, which we never want to get into the top pieces of that triangle. And it's a direct correlation. If you have 300 near misses, then you might have 30 minor incidents out of it. But out of those, at some point, you're going to have one major. And that's the biggest piece is to really take all of that data, be looking at it, be trending it, and make sure that out of those 300 and then the 30, that you don't get to that one. So for companies, it's really one of the strongest things that I would suggest because it tells you. And if you don't have many near misses or even minor incidents, but really the biggest piece is those near misses. If you're not seeing a big number there, you're missing something. And you really need to work with your employees and with your company to push near misses. Think outside of the box. Do things that you need to do to really engage the employees because that's where the culture starts, right? The culture has to be at an employee level where they're thinking, you know, "M- my safety matters, but the person who works next to me, safety matters too. And that everybody's always thinking about safety instead of just management or just EHS. It has to start at the level where the people are doing the work and the culture is there.
Such a great way to think about it because I hear some people and they just like, well, we track OSHA recordables or TIR or whatever that case is. And I think that's great. That is step number one. You actually should track that, but that's not the full picture of your safety culture in the building. And what separates, I think, good from great is the ability to, like you said, get people to buy on the floor, really track those near misses because like we just talked about a little bit ago is each one of those is an accident waiting to happen in the future. You have to get ahead of those because that's how you really drive that kind of hockey stick growth in the safety category, but the opposite direction. You want to drive it down. And you talked about a little bit earlier that you have a really strong relationship with operations leadership. And you just talked about it again with making sure that the people on the floor doing the work are really bought in. So in your experience working from EHS at a corporate level into the kind of day-to-day operations leadership, how can you or how can EHS in general better work together with operations leaders to make sure that like safety isn't getting in the way isn't the right way to say that, but it could sometimes be thought of as an extra thing to have to think about or kind of a burden almost. How do you work that out so it's safety is just part of the culture and part of the day-to-day DNA?
Nobody wants to be forced to do something or feel like something's being shoved down their throat per se. So it's really important to work together with operations as a team and not just this is what we say, you have to do it. We have to get insight and feedback from them and from the associates, again, that are doing the work at ground level. They have to be an integral part of policy making and updating policies and processes. Again, if I'm not operating a forklift, which I don't operate a forklift and I never have, I can't really think that I am going to tell someone how to do it properly. I could do the research, I can give them statistics, but I want to talk to the people that are doing that job and say, okay, here's what the research shows, and here's what the statistics show, and here's what's happening. Do you think if we did this, that it would be impactful? And what you get from them when you can get their honest and open feedback is, really important because then you're able to drive success. If you don't have the operational stakeholders, then the process is going to fail. And what they're going to come back and say is, well, EHS made us do that and it didn't work. And it's going to fail because they're not a part of it. When they are a part of it and when they feel that they had a say in how that new policy is going to be structured and written, they want to see it succeed because they know that they helped you write it. But without it, you can cause distrust and animosity. So in the over 20 years I've been doing that's probably one of the biggest things that I've had to learn is that you can't just push it on them. You have to let them be part of it.
Yeah, it has to be a dialogue, not a mandate, right? No one likes being told what to do and how to do their job. Especially to your point, never operated a forklift. It's hard to go tell someone who operates a forklift every day how to do their job. But if you come with them in a sense of trying to understand and trying to better and create a dialogue both ways, I think it's super healthy and it gets people to buy into it. And again, back to the culture piece, when people buy into it and actually understand the why behind it, that's what's going to drive it throughout the organization. It kind of catches on like wildfire at that point. So you've done a lot of great work at Rinchem. Obviously, I mean, we've been working with Rinchem for a couple of years now, and I've seen some of the programs that you've rolled out. But what are some of those initiatives or programs that you're particularly proud of that you think maybe others could replicate in their business, or maybe it's something that's coming up next that you're excited to kind of talk about and bring out to the organization?
Yeah. So we talked about good catch and how it's really important to make sure that you're capturing all of those. So in thinking of that, right, you want to make sure that the program that you have is really easy for the employees on the floor to do it, right? A lot of times, just because in administration we're using computers every day and it's what we do, doesn't mean that all the workers in your company are doing that as well. So again, making it easier for them. So we took our Good Catch program and we made QR codes and an entire marketing campaign behind it. And we have stickers that they're actually cleans. They're called, it's like a window clean. And so you can attach those all around your warehouse. They can go on racking, they can go on windows, doors. So we have them spread out everywhere throughout the warehouse. And it says, if you see something, if you see something, say something, but it's that general idea. And all they have to do is take their phone and scan the QR code. And it's a very easy way for them to quickly put in a good catch. They didn't have to log in, they didn't have to go to a computer. And it just took a few seconds of their time for them to turn that in. Another item, of course, we're hazardous materials. So safety data sheets are very important. It's required by OSHA that every employee that you have has access to the sheet for any chemical that is within your facility. So, back in the old days, you had binders full of SDS, it's just thousands of them. And every time they made an update, you had to go take it out and put a new one in. You're using paper like crazy. So we took the same concepts and we have a QR code for SDSs, and they're also posted on claims in a area more for where the product is being kept, right? So that no matter where they go, they can go to the end of the aisle, scan that QR code and quickly look up a chemical that is in their facility. So if there's a spill, if they have a question, if they found product on top of a drum and they need to understand what the hazards are quickly, they can just scan that, look it up, and it literally at their fingertips for them. One other item we have is called showcase standards. And it's something that operations does, but again, it's automated. And it's a form that tells them, basically an automated form, look at these items. So as they're walking around their warehouse, they are required to look at specific things. If your product secured that's over 6 foot high, are there any debris in the aisles, anything out of place, et cetera. There are a lot of them. But they go through those once a week, and we also have signage at the end of aisles that basically, there's an owner of the aisle. And so I think it really helps to give them ownership of, oh, this is my aisle. And if anything's out of place or shrink wrap is, hanging down or things like that, it's my responsibility to make sure that gets corrected. And so again, it brings that unity and sense of empowerment and ownership back to the employees. And if there is something in that area when they walk around, they know exactly who to go to. Hey, we saw this, how can we get better? How can we take this as a takeaway and make it better going forward? And the last, we're really excited about bringing OneTrack AI to several more facilities in 2025 with international sites in that plan. So obviously, traveling internationally is a lot more difficult than domestically. So we're really excited to be able to have that visibility like we have here in our international sites as well.
Yeah, I think I could speak from the whole One Track team. We're also excited about that as well. We really appreciate the partnership with Rinchem. I really like the aisle ownership idea. That's one that I actually haven't heard before of actually making or giving people ownership of an aisle. And it's kind of like the Adopt a Highway program, right? Where it's it doesn't mean much, but it means much when you see your name on the sign and like it just feels good and it makes you want to do a good job. And I love that to drive accountability. I think that's a really creative idea.
Yeah, they had done that before, and when I walked into one of the first facilities and I saw, they have their pictures on them, it has their name, and it's very nice signage. Again, it led to that, the sense of this is world class. This isn't just another 3PL that I'm walking into.
Yeah, and then I'm sure that helps with, keeping employees, like the employee retention piece that a lot of 3PLs are struggling with on a day to day. You're actually getting people to buy in, and like Recom is a great place to come to work at. And I think that's at the end of the day, that's what you want.
Yeah, definitely. That's both a lot, right? We all wanna go somewhere where we enjoy where we work and what we do. What do they say? 90% of employees don't leave for money, right? They leave for other reasons. So, yeah, if you can create that sense of family and ownership and belonging to an employee, it makes them wanna come to work. This is where they're spending most of their time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We spend a lot of time at work, so it's super important. Well, Melody, I really appreciate you sitting down and taking some time to talk to me today. I've definitely learned a lot from this episode, so I appreciate you coming on and sharing a lot of the great work that you and the team are doing over at Rincom.
Oh, sure. No, I thank you for the opportunity to share it.
And everyone watching, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Warehouse Visionaries. If you ever want more content, you can always find it on the OneTrack website, on the YouTube channel, or you can follow us on LinkedIn. But for now, I'm going to log off and let Melody get back to her day job. I'll see you all next time. That was a great conversation with Melody Moore at Rincom, all about the complexities of managing safety at a global 3PL, but not just a global 3PL, a global 3PL dealing with hazardous materials, which is just a fascinating world to be in. Here are my top 3 takeaways. Number 1, you might be tired of me saying it, but you have to have visibility into what's happening on the day-to-day level. It's not enough to see spreadsheets. It's not enough to see trends. You have to really understand what's happening on the floor to drive behavior change in your organization. Number 2, use what's called the Heinrich Triangle when it comes to your safety program. It basically looks at your near misses at the bottom of the triangle, all the way up to your serious OSHA recordables at the top of the triangle. You have to focus on the bottom to actually impact the top. And number 3, always involve workers when you're setting new policies. You have to get feedback from the people on the floor doing the work. If you've never driven a forklift, it's really hard to tell someone who drives a forklift every day how to do their job. Make them a part of the conversation. Make it a dialogue, not a mandate, and people will buy in much quicker, and your safety culture will go from good to world class. As always, if you're looking for more ways to take your operation to the next level, you can join the OneTrack newsletter to get emails twice a month full of real stories and advice to solve your biggest challenges, and subscribe on YouTube to never miss an episode of Warehouse Visionaries.